After Alien 3, Fox wasn't sure what to do next with the franchise. Domestically, the film should have done better in their view. The film hadn't bombed, but it was not as successful as Fox wanted, and one of the reasons they felt this was that a lot of money, over $10 million, was wasted thanks to Brandywine producers David Giler and Walter Hill in pre-production, and there was nothing to show for that lost money. This actually helped Fox to realize that the next time they made an Alien, they would helm it themselves rather than delegating it to those producers. Of course, the egos at Brandywine heard that Fox was mulling over another Alien film without them, and before a script was even begun, this is their response. We tried to stop them from making it. They developed the script on their own. In September 1991, before the release of Alien 3, Peter Briggs wrote a screenplay for an Alien vs. Predator film, and it was bought by Fox. Briggs began work on a second draft to clean it up. In late 1992, in an Aliens magazine, it stated that Roland Emmerich was attached to making an AVP film, and when interviewed, Emmerich and his partner Dean Devlin confessed that they didn't want to use Briggs' script and planned to do a film revolving around a predator alien. There was a concept drawing by Dave Dorman for a Pred Alien, but the concept for AVP fizzled by 1993 or early 1994. One of the reasons AVP was fizzling was because it was a difficult time for Fox, because in November 1992, Joe Roth was leaving the studio and was defecting to Disney Studios. Then there was the incessant infighting and egos of producers involving Alien, and that included the infamous ones at Brandywine. The infighting was over money, power, and the direction of the Alien and Predator franchise. Initially, Fox thought about Ripley coming back for a fourth film. They toyed with the idea that Alien 3 was a nightmare and Ripley would wake up from the dream and the fourth movie would begin. This left a sour taste in the studio's mouth, so they decided to respect the third film and moved on. With AVP fading away, Jorge Cierlegui at Fox commissioned up-and-comer Joss Whedon to make a treatment to impress Fox with the idea of Newt returning as a clone. Joss Whedon was a staff writer on sitcoms like Roseanne and Parenthood, and worked as an uncredited writer on films like Speed and The Getaway. It was also well known that he had worked on an animated project in 1993 called Toy Story that still hadn't been released yet. What really made him appealing was that Whedon wrote the film version of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Since he wrote a script for a strong woman in that movie, it was figured he could do it again for Alien 4. Being asked to do an Alien movie was like being offered the Grail. I happen to be one of those die-hard Alien fans. I had the opportunity to really sit down and think, how do I satisfy myself as a fan? That helps me keep an eye on the ball in terms of keeping the action exciting and inserting unexpected twists. To begin the process, he was given access to previous Alien film scripts, and that included the many Alien 3 versions. Whedon wrote a 30-page treatment which followed a cloned teenage Newt who would find herself amongst a group of mercenaries. One was an intellectual, and another one was a tough guy with a girl's name, and there was also a tough woman who was brilliant. Fox liked his initial work, but started to get cold feet about Newt being the main protagonist. They felt Ripley was the key to the franchise, and they wanted her back. Whedon was responsible for making that happen. He would finish his first draft on September 14th, 1995. The draft's first act is very close to what we got in the film, while the second and third act is drastically different. This is the draft he wrote. The script starts like the theatrical version, yet before there is a transition to an older Ripley, we find ourselves in a dreaming state where a young girl is in a field with bugs attacking her while blood is flooding the area. The girl screams, but bugs fly into her mouth before she can sound her terror. Back in the lab, we see the adult clone Ripley, and her heart rate shudders as scientists log it. A second heartbeat of the alien queen can be seen as well. There are more bad dreams, but you get the idea. The script then proceeds just like the movie. The queen is removed and the adult Ripley, when she wakes up, breaks the tech's arm. When Ripley has an examination, she chokes Wren. However, in this version, she says why as she does so. General Perez inspects the queen, and in the early drafts, there are no breath panels. Instead, there is a code panel. The dialogue in this scene is more scientific about the Ripley clone. When they enter a room, you can see a queen rising behind them, and it reaches for Perez before hitting a barrier. The creature is then electrocuted by automatic defense lasers, and it backs away. The dinner scene occurs, and Gilliam shows concern for Ripley. The Betty then arrives, and in this script, Vries has no legs and still likes Call. Instead of dropping a knife on Vries, Jeunet turns on a harvesting machine that they intend to sell, which Vries barely gets away from. Along with Christie, there is an Asian character named Saint Just who does many of the things Christie would later do in the film. For disclosure's sake, the script states the character's name is supposed to be pronounced Saint-Just. However, for simplicity's sake, I will pronounce it as it's spelled, much to the annoyance of the pronunciation police waiting to leave comments. Just is the one with the retractable pistols. The crew enters the Auriga and are scanned for weapons just like the movie. Perez pours a drink for Elgin, and their conversation is pretty much like the film. After the cargo is delivered and the inhabitants fall victim to facehuggers, we go to the basketball scene where Ripley warns the aggressive Jeunet to get away from her. He ignores her by saying, "Why should I do that?" And she says, "Because pain hurts." Ripley then punches him hard and he falls into chairs. Christie hits her hard like the film, and Ripley is more vicious and animated as she snarls and is about to rip out Jeuner's throat when the med techs stop her by calling her name. We then cut to guards emptying pens of aliens into their confined areas. The holding pens are more thought out as the walls have laser webs, forcing the aliens to be in the middle, and it is stated that Father monitors the pens constantly. Wren and Gilliam talk about the Queen, stating that her egg-laying phase has ended for some reason, and she now has a strange reproductive anomaly. They want to run tests on the creature to figure out what's going on. The montage of nightlife occurs with the crew of the Betty, and then Gilliam is inspecting the aliens in their pens. Something moves behind him, and it is Ripley. He asks how she got in there, but she changes the subject by asking about the creatures. Gilliam states they are communicating between each other like bats. Ripley then runs her hands through Gilliam's hair and starts kissing him. He returns the gesture, and then she smiles before an alien tongue erupts from her mouth, killing him. Ripley then wakes up, squatting in the middle of her cell. She then settles back to sleep. In this version, most of the Betty crew are playing poker. Call plays being drunk, then she heads for Ripley. Call confronts Ripley pretty much the same, but does mention that she read Morse, and she asks Ripley to help her deal with the alien issue. Call then leaves and is captured. When the confrontation with the crew of the Betty occurs, it is Saint Just who is the one firing the pistols. Jeunet uses his thermos gun, and Christie tackles a guard. Call tries to leave, but Elgin grabs her roughly. Jeunet wants them to kill Call because she's a mole. The aliens escape just like the film, but when Gilliam inspects the pen, a guard is covering him. Gilliam is taken like in the film before the guard can react. We then cut to an alien leaping on a tech, while soldiers fire at an alien going into a vent. Perez wakes, gets a damage report, while men are being killed by aliens in the barracks. During Vries's encounter, he sees a drop of acid from above and avoids it, wondering what the hell it is. Back in Ripley's cell, aliens are slamming at the door to get to her, but she escapes by kicking through the ceiling after climbing on pipes. Many escape in lifeboats, and the grenade scene occurs. Back at the mess, DeStefano tells Elgin to let go of Wren, so there will be no problems. Elgin tells him once they get to the Betty, they will let him go. In the lower decks, Vries sees an alien and it comes for him, but he closes the door on it. He then assembles his gun from his chair. Soldiers are being directed by Perez when an alien appears. One of his soldiers shoots the beast in front of a window and everyone panics. Perez is sucked out of a tiny hole violently, and then doors seal while foam blasts into vents that immediately harden, thus sealing off the area. As the crew of the Betty are moving along, an alien jumps from above and kills Elgin. Then the alien goes after a hostage soldier. Everyone scatters while St. Just trips, smashing his head against a pipe. Call opens a door to reveal Ripley. Ripley and the alien then fight in hand-to-hand combat. When the creature tries to bite Ripley with its inner jaw, she catches it and rips it out of the alien's mouth. With the alien dead, Ripley gives Call the inner jaw. There is a debate about taking Ripley, but Christie says they can work together until they get to the ship. Then it's everyone for themselves. Vreese arrives in the elevator, and the team tells Vreese that Call is a mole who infiltrated their group. Vreese says after seeing the creatures, he doesn't blame her one bit. Vreese then begins arming people with weapons from his chair. They go on, finding Purvis, and discover the Queen's holding cell empty. As they trek forward, they sometimes hear soldiers fighting and avoid the confrontation areas. Soon, they need to get past an area where they know aliens are located. Wren suggests trapping the creatures using a freezing mechanism like what was seen in the film. The group begin calling out, trying to get the aliens' attention. Joner says, "Here, kitty kitty," but the aliens stop outside the area, not falling for it. Then Ripley grabs Call and forces her towards the aliens. Everyone begins to panic. The creatures then move forward and fall into the trap. Ripley then lets go of Call and states the aliens sensed no fear, so they knew it was a trap. So she used Call to generate fear in the group to get them to come forward. Ripley then discovers the clone room, and after Call punches Wren, Christie says, "You had it coming, Doc." The underwater scene occurs, and instead of Christie firing a magic bouncing grenade, both Christie and Vreese surfaces and creates a circle of bullets to protect the group from facehuggers and eggs, while Ripley rips off a facehugger from her face. St. Just shoots an alien in the water, and its blood begins to spread within. People escape from the water before it turns acidic. Joner grabs a burner, which is an electric gun. He zaps the water, killing the aliens following them. The elevator shaft sequence is very different. The group is followed by multiple aliens, and the area is much larger. Call is shot by Wren, and she falls onto a stationary elevator several floors below, while Christie gets acid spit in his face. Ripley super jumps to Wren's location, but an alien tries to grab her. As it nears her, she pushes herself and the alien off the ledge. The alien falls into the depths while Ripley grabs a pipe. Vreese begins climbing with Christie's weight, saying he won't give up on his friend. He is barely able to do so, and when Joner comes to help him, it is discovered that Christie is dead on his back, and they cut him loose. They also show an alien entering the area with a facehugger scurrying on its head anxiously. The facehugger goes right for Call. It covers her face, but it does not stay on long and begins looking for other prey. Then the elevator Call was on rises, and the door opens to reveal Call inside. She tells everyone to jump on. They do so, but the floor of the elevator is punctured by an alien hand that is trying to get in from below. The alien tries to rip through as the elevator reaches the top. They escape, and Ripley shoots the elevator cable, sending the alien and the elevator into the depths. Call is revealed to be a synth, and the chapel scene occurs, as does the blocking of Wren's escape. In the next area, the team discovers a garden-like environment which supplies food to the ship. There is corn, wheat, and marijuana, to which St. Just says, "So this is what heaven looks like." They climb onto an electric truck and travel, but aliens can be seen moving in the crops beside the truck, and some attack from above. Hillard is killed, Purvis shoots a gun, saving Joner's life, and St. Just is severely wounded. The truck halts before some steps, and aliens are following. They are in a wide hallway, which will surely cause a breach if the aliens are shot. St. Just pops some pills and stays behind, wounded, lamely saying, "I'm bored." while the others run for it. As the aliens near Just, he starts shooting and kills many, and acid splatters. Within no time, a hull breach occurs. After escaping the breach, the others just keep running. Call and Ripley fall behind, and Ripley throws Call away as 6 aliens surround her and take her. Call turns around and chases after the crew of the Betty. Ripley is cocooned in the hive as aliens spit goo out of their back tubes. She is hanging upside down like others, and there are 4 alien drones serving the Queen as she goes into labor. Back at the Betty, Ren shoots Purvis in the shoulder, and the standoff occurs. When the newborn arrives, it has bone-white skin with red veins visibly everywhere. It has an alien dome for a head and 4 legs that come out of its back like a spider. It is large, almost as large as the Queen. It kills the Queen and a soldier that yelled while cocooned, trying to reach his rifle near him. The newborn jumps to the soldier and bites off his head and stays there as it sucks all blood from his body. Then the newborn jumps to get him and begins to do the same while Ripley breaks free of her cocoon. Back at the Betty, DeStefano is killed by a stray bullet. Purvis goes nuts, kills Ren. The chestburster leaps at Call. Instinctively, she pulls her stiletto out, and the creature is cut in half as the blade melts. Some acid gets on Call and the floor. Ripley manages to get free and crawls into a duct the newborn can't fit in. She heads to the Betty. As the Betty begins to separate from its docking clamp, Ripley jumps on the ship's roof with a newborn right behind her. The ship is too close to the atmosphere, so the Betty lowers from the Auriga after it enters the atmosphere of Earth. Ripley and the newborn hang on for dear life, and Call opens the hatch to let Ripley in. The Betty crashes into a wooded area while the newborn crawls to the back of the ship to avoid debris. The ship stops, and Call stupidly opens a hatch, and surprise, there is a newborn reaching for her. The newborn then runs away, with Ripley chasing after it. When Ripley reaches the creature, it stabs her, and rather than kill her, it stands up triumphantly and sprouts bat wings. I'm serious. I'm not joking here. It sprouts bat wings. Then Call shows up with perfect timing, driving a harvester with sharp blades and rams the newborn. The creature is wounded, but the newborn flips over the harvester in frustration. Then Ripley charges the newborn, and it falls into the exposed blades of the harvester and is chopped to bits. At the end of the film, the skull of the newborn is burning, and the 4 survivors talk about getting out of Dodge before the authorities show up. Call asks Ripley what she thinks, and Ripley responds by saying, "I don't know. I'm a stranger here myself." Despite the bat wings and a few off moments, the script was pretty solid and took itself seriously. It should be noted, the script had a lot taken from other Alien scripts, especially David Twohy's version. From that script, there was an alien underwater scene, a biological lab experimenting on xenomorphs, including a room with abominations in tubes, much like what we saw in the film. It also had a crewman being sucked out a bullet-sized hole into space and a giant freak alien like the newborn. There was also crop fields and trucks in Eric Red's earlier script. Weaver was sent the script, and she was intrigued. She liked how Joss approached her cloning and the duality of the new Ripley. Joss Whedon met with Sigourney to talk about her character and the second draft, and he was not sure how far he should go with Ripley's bad side. Weaver told him to push those boundaries, and there was even a discussion of making a 9th Ripley clone that would be an evil version of Ripley 8, but that idea did not get past the early discussions. With Weaver interested, the ball began to roll. Although Brandywine was included in the package, they were pretty much trophy producers. David Giler and Walter Hill thought Alien 4 was a terrible idea and said it would ruin the franchise. Nobody paid any mind to them, though, which was a good thing considering the mess they made of the last film's pre-production process. If you don't know what I'm talking about, we cover this in our extensive Alien 3 4-part series. At the time, Winona Ryder was under contract at Fox, and studio chiefs knew she was a fan of science fiction, so they wanted to create a vehicle for her in that genre. We were kicking some ideas around at a meeting, and about halfway into it I said, "Hey, You know there's this part in the Alien movie that might interest you. Do you like the Alien films? Somehow, when they first approached me, I thought they wanted me to replace Ripley. All I could think was, no way, you can't have me at the helm. I'm 5 feet 4 inches tall. Hello? When she heard that Sigourney was going to be the lead, she signed without hesitation. To get Sigourney enticed, the studio paid her $11 million, and she was given a co-producer credit with final say of the director, as well as other powers. There was no mistaking she had a lot of creative control on this film. With Sigourney signed on to do the film, the character of Wren was written with the intention of having Bill Murray play the part, to reunite Sigourney and Bill. That did not happen. Whedon also thought Chow Yun-fat would be perfect to play Christie, as the character was a melding of both Christie and St. Just from his first draft. Chow's manager and producer, Terrence Chang, declined the role. With 2 stars and a steady writer, the next task was to pick a director. This time, Fox wanted someone who would be obedient to the studio's desires and had an eye for filming scenes. Amalgamated Dynamics was approached to return to do the effects since they did Alien 3 and worked on Aliens. They would meet with the first director choice for the film. In early 1996, with the release of Trainspotting, Danny Boyle was the first name thought of by Fox. He met with Sigourney, who said she was attracted to the psychological and sexual elements of the script. He then had French fries with Winona and talked about the film. He really liked the script, but it was the special effects that unnerved him. I realized I'd be hopeless at directing Alien 4 because I had no knowledge of puppeteering. CG was just being introduced, and you have to have a knowledge of it. At that point, I had no experience in or real interest in working with CG, so I very quickly understood I just wouldn't be able to do it properly. It was around this time that he had been given a script for A Life Less Ordinary, and Boyle backed out of the project to pursue that film. If you are wondering what kind of film Boyle would have made, here is what he hinted at after the fact. I couldn't have influenced Alien 4. When I read the script, it had this amazing cloning idea that they recreate Ripley, perfect her. I would have focused on that. With all those executive producers around, you had no chance. It had to be an action movie. Then the studio approached Peter Jackson, who was a growing filmmaker known for Heavenly Creatures and was currently finishing The Frighteners with Michael J. Fox. I was asked to direct Alien Resurrection, but I passed. I just can't get excited about doing an alien film. Next up was David Cronenberg, who was best known for the 1986 body horror The Fly. Cronenberg seemed an obvious choice, but he told the studio, "You know, I don't even do sequels to my own movies. Why would I do sequels to somebody else's movies?" Cronenberg would later speak in retrospect. "It's tempting for a minute because they're begging me to do it, and it's Fox, and I'd love to work with Sigourney Weaver and Winona Ryder. It'd be great fun. The problem with doing a schlocky big-budget horror film or studio film is that it wouldn't actually be fun for me. I'm innately honest, I think. If I'm going to do Aliens 4, then I'm going to deliver Aliens 4. I'm going to try and make it the best version of Aliens 4 I can. So I'm not going to try and subvert it and make it something else. Because why spend 80 to 100 million of studios' money and just be deceitful and be fighting them all the time and have them combat you and then end up with something that isn't really good either way? Then there was Terry Gilliam. I got offered an Alien sequel because I was hot at the time as a result of Time Bandits and Fisher King, and I just don't want to do films like that. They are factory jobs working for a studio. My last factory job was on the Chevrolet assembly plant in Los Angeles during my junior year of college. Night shift, on the line, never again. Finally, Fox had some luck. With the huge success of Usual Suspects, Bryan Singer was courted, and he actually wanted to direct a science fiction movie at the time, but a producer named Tom DeSanto thought Singer would be better suited for the upcoming X-Men project because he proved with Suspects that he could direct an ensemble cast. Singer wasn't sure about about doing a comic book film, but DeSanto stressed the themes of prejudice within X-Men. So, Fox sent Singer to X-Men and continued to the next director, Paul W. Anderson. With Mortal Kombat's success, Paul was interested in doing a science fiction film. He was approached, but he stated he didn't accept due to scheduling problems. He did say this about the script, though. It's got what you want from an alien movie. Guns and lots of aliens running around. In a way, it would have been a great movie to do because I love alien movies. But I've grown up with aliens. I saw 20 years ago what the alien could do, and it still does the same thing. I think that's the problem with a lot of monster movies. How do you scare people with it? Ironically, Paul would go on to make Alien vs. Predator in 2004, and we will talk about that one at another time. Jean-Pierre Jeunet was asked to direct, but at first he was not interested. At the time, he was writing a script for a film called Amélie, and he wanted to focus on that project. By the way, if you haven't seen Amélie, it is Jeunet's best work, and the movie is brilliant. If you haven't seen it, do so. Anyways, this is what Jeunet said about being offered the film.
Why you want to hire me? I am busy. I don't want to make a Hollywood movie. And it was exactly the thing they wanted to hear, you know.
Jeunet was asked to come to America, and he was sent the script. He would arrive in New York first to meet with Weaver, and one of the things Jean-Pierre said was that he wanted to get rid of a lot of Whedon's generic action for something arty, to which Sigourney replied, "You are my hero." When he arrived to Los Angeles, he was still bewildered why Fox wanted him. He stayed the night at a hotel and had read the script. However, he had to put a stamp on it that would make it his own vision. So he thought up the first scene with the bug, which was seen in the special edition. The next morning, when he talked to Fox, he pitched the idea, and Fox loved it for some reason and offered him the director spot based off of that scene. They hired me. I was so pissed off. To lock the deal, Jeunet was given creative control with stipulations. He had to stay in budget and had to keep to the bones of the script, which was the DNA that the two main stars signed up to do. Visually, Jeunet could do whatever he wanted, but story-wise, he was locked unless Sigourney or the studio signed off on said changes. Jeunet looked at the job and thought of it as filming a long commercial for a client. He was a hired hand and would do what the studio wanted while putting his slant on it. Jeunet wanted to bring his French special effects team, his script supervisor, editor, and cinematography team. This meant that a large number of the crew would speak French only. Jeunet also wanted Ron Perlman right from the start as Joner, one of his better calls. He made it apparent he wanted to visually make the film a dark comedy with violence while matching the script. The studio should have said no to that last stipulation because comedy should be the last tone of an alien film, but they gave him their support as long as Sigourney said yes to his desires. Not everyone was eager with congratulations. David Fincher called me and said, "Give up. Go back to Paris." Jeunet's concept artist Mark Caro then came to America in June 1996 for a few weeks to start with rough ideas. Personally, I thought the images were interesting, but they looked like they belonged in a Dune universe rather than an alien universe. Caro would not stay because he did not think the studio would respect his visions. With his artists working on concepts and storyboards, Jeunet gave out the marching orders to his French team that he wanted Alien 4 to be like a dark children's story and not an adult horror film. This really affected the visual style of the film. Now, something that you need to understand is that every movie Jeunet had made up to this point, he had written. He was used to being the sole creator of a film, so he began adapting many little things in Whedon's script. He is on record and stated that for every scene, he wanted to change it just a little to make it his.
But I modify a lot of the script. I put a lot of detail, for example, the stupid gag, I don't remember, the cube of whiskey, right. You know, the spider. Because it wasn't my script and I am used to write my own script, it was a challenge for me to bring one idea per scene.
Now, if you're familiar with this film at all, you should know that later, when Joss Whedon made it big, he had some complaints about Jeunet and his team's handling of his script. The quote at the beginning of this video should have clued you in on this. We will go more into this in later videos, but one thing I will say right now is that it was, without debate, Jeunet's right to visualize the movie any way he wanted to as the director. He made the film his, which is what any director would have done in the same situation. We will reveal how we feel about this dynamic at the end of our final video covering this film. For now, we're just going to move on. Whedon was touching up the second draft and threw in some French nods such as Paris at the end and the bug beginning, which was an immediate Jeunet idea. Whedon also added an extra scene thanks to Sigourney's continued desire to have sex with the alien. She wanted this since she asked Cameron to put it in his early script when she was approached by him in 1985. Now, she had the vehicle to make it more plausible, and it was Whedon who had to meet the demands. On July 22nd, 1996, the second draft was finished, and it was a tighter story with a better ending than before. However, we will cover this script at the beginning of part 2 and finish the making of Alien Resurrection. So hold back your impatience. It'll be out next Friday.
Look! This is an emergency.
Ma'am, you're gonna have to wait your turn. There are patients ahead of you in line.
If you like what you see here, click like and subscribe. And if you really like what you see, use super thanks.